The 2024 U.S. presidential election delivered a result few predicted. The political landscape was rife with tension and uncertainty, as Americans from all walks of life headed to the polls, casting their votes in what many considered one of the most pivotal elections in recent history. Donald J. Trump, having lost in 2020, had spent the intervening years maintaining a strong presence in the political arena. His rallies continued to draw massive crowds, and his influence within the Republican Party remained formidable. In a dramatic turn of events, Trump returned to defeat Vice President Kamala Harris. Harris, who had campaigned vigorously on a platform of unity and progress, found herself up against a reinvigorated Trump campaign that capitalized on the nation's growing discontent. This victory was not just a return to power, it was a decisive win. The election night saw jubilant celebrations among Trump supporters who viewed the result as a vindication of their beliefs and a rejection of the current administration's policies. Trump secured both the Electoral College and the popular vote, a feat that underscored the breadth of his appeal. His campaign's strategic focus on key battleground states paid off, flipping several traditionally Democratic strongholds. Surpassing expectations and defying pre-election polls, Trump's victory was a testament to his campaign's ability to mobilize voters. Analysts were left scrambling to understand how the polls had missed the mark so significantly. The nation, already deeply divided, now faced the reality of a resurgent Trump presidency. The election results sparked intense debates and protests, highlighting the stark divisions within American society. His victory, however, was more than a simple electoral win. It was a complex phenomenon that reflected the changing dynamics of American politics. Trump's ability to connect with a broad spectrum of voters, from disaffected working-class individuals to staunch conservatives, played a crucial role in his success. It represented a confluence of factors, a perfect storm that propelled him back to the White House. Economic concerns, cultural shifts, and a desire for strong leadership in uncertain times all contributed to this unexpected outcome. Understanding this victory requires looking beyond the surface and examining the perspectives of the left, right, and center. Each group had its own reasons for supporting or opposing Trump, and these motivations were deeply rooted in the broader socio-political context of the time. The 2024 election will be remembered not just for its surprising result, but for what it revealed about the American electorate and the evolving nature of democracy in the United States.
For many on the right, Trump's victory was a vindication. It was a moment of triumph, a signal that their voices had finally been heard after years of feeling sidelined by the political establishment. They saw in Trump a leader who spoke their language, who understood their frustrations and was willing to take on the entrenched powers that they believed had long ignored their needs and concerns. They saw him as a victim of relentless attacks from the left, a man who was constantly under siege from those who could not accept his victory. To them, the opposition's efforts to undermine Trump were not just political maneuvers, but personal vendettas. They believed that the left's resistance was driven by a deep-seated fear of the change Trump represented, a change that threatened to upend the status quo. Targeted by a biased media and hounded by politically motivated court cases, Trump was portrayed as a figure who could not catch a break. Every move he made was scrutinized, every word he uttered was dissected, often with a negative spin. The media, in the eyes of his supporters, was not just reporting the news, but actively shaping a narrative designed to bring him down. The court cases, they argued, were part of a broader strategy to discredit him and his administration. These cases, they argued, were not about justice, but about silencing a powerful voice that challenged the establishment. They believed that the legal battles were less about the law and more about politics, a way to neutralize a president who was willing to take on the so-called deep state. The slogan, "Drain the Swamp," became a rallying cry, symbolizing their desire to root out corruption and restore power to the people. This narrative of persecution resonated deeply with Trump's base. It reinforced their belief that they were fighting a righteous battle against a corrupt system. The emotional connection they felt with Trump was palpable at rallies, where chants of "We stand with Trump" echoed through the crowds. For many, supporting Trump was not just a political choice, but a personal commitment to a cause they believed in passionately. They saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, their own feelings of being ignored and marginalized by the elite. Trump, in their eyes, was one of them, a fighter who understood the challenges of the working class and was willing to stand up for their interests. Whether it was at town halls, diners, or in their living rooms, discussions about Trump often centered on his ability to connect with ordinary Americans and address their concerns in a way that no other politician had. The court cases, regardless of their merit, became symbolic of a system rigged against them and their champion. Each new legal challenge was seen as further proof that the establishment would stop at nothing to silence Trump and, by extension, his supporters. The sense of injustice fueled their resolve, making them more determined than ever to stand by their president and fight for the change they believed he could bring. In community centers and online forums, the conversation was the same. The fight was far from over, and they were ready to continue the battle.
Centrists offered a different perspective. They argued that the Democrats, in their focus on identity politics, had alienated moderate voters, a crucial demographic in any election. The party's emphasis on issues like transgender rights and the use of terms like Latinx did not resonate with many working-class Americans. These voters, grappling with economic anxieties like inflation, felt unheard. The Democrats' perceived focus on social issues over bread-and-butter concerns created a disconnect, pushing them towards Trump, who, despite his rhetoric, was seen as more attuned to their economic anxieties.
For liberals, Trump's victory was a bitter pill to swallow. They attributed it to his mastery of divisive rhetoric and his manipulation of social issues. Immigration, crime, and economic decline became weapons in his hands, used to stoke fear and resentment, often detached from factual data. They argue that Trump, despite his often contradictory statements and policies, successfully tapped into a vein of anger and frustration within the electorate. This anger, fueled by economic anxieties and social changes, found an outlet in Trump's populist message, overshadowing the Democrats' policy achievements.
Critiques of the liberal perspective emerged, however. As the political landscape shifted, voices from various corners began to question the effectiveness and inclusivity of the liberal agenda. These critiques were not just from the opposition, but also from within the liberal camp itself. While acknowledging the power of Trump's rhetoric, critics argued that focusing solely on his tactics ignored the genuine grievances of many Americans. Trump's speeches, filled with bold promises and direct language, struck a chord with those who felt marginalized. His ability to tap into the frustrations of the average American was unparalleled, yet the liberal critique often missed this point. These grievances, rooted in economic insecurity, cultural anxieties, and a sense of being left behind, created fertile ground for Trump's message. The sight of closed factories and struggling small businesses became symbols of a broken system. People standing in food bank lines and attending community meetings in rural towns voiced their concerns, feeling that their struggles were invisible to the political elite. The Democrats, they argued, failed to fully grasp the depth of these grievances. Despite their efforts to address issues through policy, they often came across as disconnected from the everyday realities of many Americans. The debates in Congress and the discussions among political analysts on TV seemed distant and out of touch with the lived experiences of those in economically distressed areas. Their focus on policy over emotional connection, on data over narrative, left them unable to counter Trump's appeal, which resonated on a visceral level with a significant portion of the electorate. The Democratic campaign headquarters buzzed with activity, with people analyzing data and strategizing, yet they missed the emotional pulse of the nation. Meanwhile, Trump supporters, driven by a deep emotional connection to his message, rallied with fervor. This emotional disconnect highlighted a critical gap in the liberal approach, one that would need addressing to bridge the divide and truly understand the unheeded grievances of the American people.
Trump's appeal, however, went beyond simple storytelling. He offered something more profound, a sense of identity. In a rapidly changing world, where traditional structures of power and identity were being challenged, Trump offered a return to a perceived golden age, a time when America was great. This message resonated with those who felt left behind by globalization, by technological advancements, and by the cultural shifts sweeping the nation. Trump offered them a sense of belonging, a community united against a common enemy, the elites.
Trump's victory underscored the deep polarization plaguing American society. The nation was divided not just along political lines, but along cultural, economic, and even geographical ones. This division, fueled by social media echo chambers and a shrinking media landscape, created a fertile ground for misinformation and mistrust. This polarization, many feared, would make governing increasingly difficult, hindering progress on critical issues and further eroding trust in democratic institutions. The challenge for both parties moving forward was to find a way to bridge this divide and rebuild a sense of shared purpose.
The 2024 election offered valuable lessons for the future. For the Democrats, it highlighted the need to move beyond identity politics and reconnect with working-class voters.
For the Republicans, it underscored the dangers of divisive rhetoric and the importance of governing for all Americans.
Most importantly, it served as a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy.
The future, it seemed, hinged on the ability of Americans to heal the divisions within their society and find common ground amidst their differences.